So my M3 has a problem. A catless straight pipe problem. Now, 99% of car YouTubers will do one of two things. One, I could slap a $5,000 titanium exhaust on there. The second option is I could take said cats to a shop and have them welded back onto my exhaust. But I'm gonna up the stupidity level one more notch on this build, and I'm gonna attempt to weld this exhaust on my own. Now, lucky for me, the good people at Truzy decided to ship me one of their arc welders off of Amazon to try out. So a man with zero knowledge or experience with welding or any kind of metal fabrication, let alone exhaust work, is gonna attempt to do this in this tiny ass garage. What could possibly go wrong? Just you wait and see. Okay, so here's the plan, boys and girls. These primary straight pipes over here, this I'm gonna keep. So I want to keep the primary cat delete. You get a lot more power by doing that. This is the stock one for comparison. Now, as you can see on mine, I've got like an X pipe down there. I'm going to put back the stock secondary cats. So I'm going to have to cut my exhaust over here, weld those in here. And then the previous genius basically left a straight pipe all the way back to those aftermarket MagnaFlow mufflers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the stock resonators, weld them back to this pipe, which is going to be connected to the stock X pipe and the stock secondary cats, and then weld it onto this third piece. Lastly, this hanger here, I'm going to weld back onto this piece here. And this is the point in time at which you realize you bit off more than you can chew. All right, next step. I've essentially jigged up a wooden jig, nice and flammable, to hold this in. And essentially I'm trying to hold the entire structure in place because I'm going to have to cut the pipe here and over here. I couldn't find an emotional welding support dog, so I got my brother here.
Let's do this.
Have you used a fire extinguisher?
Never.
Well, we're going to find out how one works. Let's go. Take a look, shall we? Keep away from babies. Well, I think that goes without saying. So with welding, obviously goes without saying, you want to have the right protection. So I've got an auto-dimming helmet. I've got a welding shirt/jacket, gloves, secondary eye protection. I am using 309L, which are stainless steel electrodes /carbon, so they can connect stainless steel to regular steel. Obviously, I've got a whole bunch of these pipes from the original stock exhaust that I'm going to be practicing with. And of course, the good friends at Rylon who sent me this ARC 160 GS welder. Let's begin. All right, here we go. First time striking an arc. Welcome to the joys of learning how to weld. Ooh, that got hot quickly. Did I mention we're not burning through anything yet? Look at that. Swiss cheese. I went up to 65, so we got to go down. That burned right through. Well, that looks like something. I'd say that one was half decent. I got a lot more practice because this is very thin metal. You're basically ripping through it like a hot knife through butter on thin pipes like this. This is going to be very, very tricky and challenging. All right, so here's my second time passing, trying to do some lines. I started from here. As you can see, as I guess the rod tip gets hotter, it gets messier and harder to keep a straight line. Here I started melting a lot more of the metal. I guess probably because I was also towards the edge. But compared to the first pass, which looked like this, I'd say pass 2 is starting to look better. But hey, all things considered, not too shabby. Whew, this is hard. Okay, now that I've lined up the center over here, I essentially need to mark out exactly where I'm going to cut this back half and where I'm going to cut the front. Come out, wherever you are. How about this for a test fit? That is crazy, crazy good. I still need to fix my ovalization over here. And I'm gonna have to find some metal to weld these pieces for the support. But look at the tightness over here. That is fantastic. So happy about this. Don't jinx it. All right, I've cleaned up those edges with a wire wheel. Now it's time to tack on those front ones, then we'll do the back, and then we can test to see the fit before we rotisserie and release all the clamps. Here we go. Alright, so the back is welded too. I noticed a bunch of spots here on the old exhaust where I saw some black soot marks, which basically meant there was exhaust leaks coming out of these points. So I tried to patch those up as best as I can. We're going to smoke test this thing later. Now it's time to unbolt and flip this popsicle stand so we can do the other side. Alright, so the job is done. Check out my welds. Not too shabby. Who cares what it looks like, frankly, as long as it holds. And the front, where it was the most tricky, not looking the cleanest, but who cares as long as it holds air. Speaking of which, I plugged up the holes. Now let's hook up our trusty smoke machine and see if this thing can hold air. Surprise, surprise, we got our first air leak. Not sure how well you can see it, but right there from the bottom of that pipe, we've got some smoke escaping. Alright, so second smoke test completed. Everything is in good order. I welded up some of the bottom pieces here a few extra times and we are good to go. Now, it's time to fix that broken connection. I've got some 1/8 inch L-shaped tubing. I'm going to cut this to size, flip this back around, and then measure that up and weld it to close that gap. And then we are finally done with the welding on this Frankenstein of an exhaust. Mwahaha. So the welding is now officially done. Even these brackets over here, rock solid, not going anywhere. And the last piece of this custom Frankenstein exhaust puzzle is the identity crisis that's going on at the back. As some of you may know, we've got Denon tips welded to MagnaFlow mufflers. What I'm going to do is I'm going to scuff up these mufflers and all of these pieces and this bracketry, and we're going to paint that black. Now, I was going to paint the tips silver and get rid of this Denon, but as I started sanding this is like some sort of super hard, very difficult to remove ceramic coating on here, and I just don't think it's going to come off. And if I try and spray paint over it, I think it's just going to be a flaky disaster over time. So even this is going to be tricky because this is stainless steel and very difficult to actually get to cure and to stick on properly for the paint. So we're going to do our best over here, and we're going to test to see how this works out longer term. And we've got some Scotch-Brite pads, some TSP, which is a multi-surface degreaser, And then lastly, I've got some engine primer and engine black semi-gloss. Over here, I've got a nice heater that's going to heat up this place because it's about 0 degrees Celsius outside. And then I've got my fan extractor that's going to blow the stink. As you can see, I've cleared out the exhaust and all the junk. Now I'm going to grab the car and give the neighbors their New Year's present. Hi. Yep. This might be a touch loud. Whew. What do you think of that, NASCAR? Ha ha ha. All right, ladies, we've got the exhaust bolted up, and lo and behold, it has bolted up perfectly. Look at that. Huh? Color me impressed. Now, before I fire up this thing with the new exhaust installed, I want to check the health of the battery because this car has been sitting for quite a while. Plus, it's a project car, and like any of you who have project cars, it's probably not a bad idea to test your battery. So TOPDON decided to send me their BT300P battery tester, and we're going to see the state of health of our battery. Full disclosure, I've never actually used this product. We're going to find out just how good it is. It's got a printing function, which is kind of cool, some instructions, and some extra printing paper. Let's go to the trunk, try this out. Red on the positive, black on the negative. Error, check connecting. I think they mean check the connection. Here we go. Let's do a battery test. All right, some quick Googling, and I found that it's an 800 cca battery. So we're going to go up to 800 cca. Enter. Power too low. Weather. Continue testing. Yes. So the health is showing me 83% health. It's got 730, I guess, cold cranking amps. The charge is 11.8 volts, so quite low. So now what we're going to do is we're going to hook up a battery tender, and we're going to let that sit on there until it's full, and then we're going to do this reading again and see if the health improves. Right, I've had the battery on a tender for about an hour or two. It's not 100% yet, but let's see if this makes a difference. So we're going to do battery test, AGM. I think I took regular flooded last time. That was incorrect. This is an AGM battery. No error message that the battery is low this time. Health, 79%. Charge, 100%. So, battery's good. Now, I will say this. I used this exact same machine on my brother's F10 528, and he was having all kinds of battery issues, especially now that the weather has gotten cold. He would get in the car, and none of the lights would turn on, like the interior lights, or anything like that. The car would crank fine, but the battery was definitely on the low end. And he wasn't sure what was going on. We hooked this up. His battery health on his 528 was 13%. He since bought a brand new battery, and all those problems disappeared. So this is very, very useful if you're going to have multiple cars, or if you drive older cars, or especially if you drive cars in colder climates. This thing can save your butt big time. And that way you don't get stranded when it's minus 25 out. I'm going to stop talking. Let's start this car. Woof. What do you think about that? You could actually hear intake noise for a change. The exhaust lines up perfectly from the back. I mean, I'm staggered. I'm still shocked that me, a complete desk office noob, managed to weld, butt weld no less, steel to stainless steel on an exhaust at home in this garage using a $100 Amazon welder. Now, some of you are probably wondering, and drop me in the comments below, would I do this again? Well, if Truzy hadn't sent me a welder for free, I probably would have paid a shop to do this. How much I would have paid them, I don't know, probably anywhere between $300 and $800, depending on where I went. Would they have done as good of a job? Probably. Would they have tested it to see if it's airtight? Maybe, maybe not, if I asked them to or if I paid them a little extra. It doesn't matter. The M3 finally sounds somewhat civilized, but it still has that growl and that race car vibe that I just love about this motor. I want to send a huge shout out to Truzy for sending me the welding machine. Massive thank you. This was an awesome learning experience. I now have, somewhat basic welding skills that I can use to start welding up things all around the house, which is kind of cool. And thank you to TOPDON for sending me that battery tester. It's always good to get some peace of mind that your battery's in tip-top shape. So that's going to be it for this episode. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already. Ciao.